Hey, what's up everybody? Back with a new video. Let's talk about businesses that are currently suffering and struggling or thinking alternatives of either selling or going through bankruptcy. And what are some of the things that you can do potentially to avoid that, and some of the mishaps that people are going through, especially in these times. It's confusing altogether, right? A lot of people are getting confused as to what are some of the steps they need to take in order to avoid filing bankruptcy, or what are some of the steps they need to take in order to basically come together and make sure that whatever they do progressively, they can move their businesses. And unfortunately, it's not as easy as it sounds, right? So what I'm trying to say here is, you might have an extremely healthy business that you've been running for a very long time, and all of a sudden there are certain things that just happen. We have this pandemic, for example, which is one of the biggest and most unexpected things that can ever happen when it comes to being financially viable for your business. And then you might have other things like, hey, employees are demanding payroll because you have to meet that and they've worked for you, but now you're in a cash crunch. What do you pay rent? You have to prioritize your finances, and basically now you're stuck at a limbo and making yourself look like a bad guy, but unfortunately it's not your fault, right? It's just that the circumstances have turned out to be so. So what are some of the steps that you would take in order to avoid all these type of issues or challenges that we've gone through? What are some of the things that you can do to make sure that we position ourselves properly, moving forward, to fix your credit the proper way, and being able to adjust some of the things that are happening, both on an economic perspective and as well as for your business and your personal as well. So one of the things that I always like to emphasize on is think about, some of the emergency, funds that you have available. Government have programs out there. There's a list of them. You definitely want to read them out and see if you qualify. Most of the stuff is self-explanatory. A lot of people are doing videos on these type of things, and I don't really want to waste your time or mine trying to put things together for you where you can actually read it out on the government website itself, and it's fairly self-explanatory. The other thing you want to do is focus on is really angle yourself on a personal level to be able to take on any new financial hits that are coming up, any new waves of financial damage that's potentially coming up. And the best way to do that is basically position yourself in a way that makes sense, where you can look at some of the infrastructure that you got going on for yourself, and you say, look, I don't have the financial viability to sustain right now, and everybody's going through a very hard time, which is given, right? Everybody is definitely going through a hard time. But what are some of the things that you're doing to kind of like overcome some of those challenges and obstacles? You see what I'm saying? Like, for example, the financial viability, right? It's all based on your personal credit and the amount of money you have saved up. The balance doesn't really add up or the math doesn't add up if you don't have enough money saved, or let alone you have the sufficient credit to sustain or even borrow and get equity. For example, if you have a home, getting a line of credit through home equity line of credit, or trying to get some financing or a line of credit. At these times, it could be the most important thing that you can access, especially if you don't have cash. But what if you don't qualify? And what if your credit is not set up to get that? And there's a lot of advice that a lot of people will give you. That's a given. They're going to tell you should work on this, and you should do that, and you should do this. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, if it's not suitable for you, and you won't know it's suitable for you or not because it's very generic advice being given out there, right? Given, like, I do provide videos on a very generic perspective as well, but I try to be as thorough as possible with the information I provide. If it's not a viable solution for you altogether, it's not going to work. And if it's not a viable solution for you, and if it's not going to work, then why would you want to waste your time listening to that? So in context to what we're saying here is, if you don't have the credit right now and you don't qualify, and it's going to take you some time before you actually get used to having access to those type of credit profiles, then consider some of the things that you can do alternatively. And one of the biggest things is like restructure your assets. It's a time where you can look at some of the things that you have, a lot of goods, a lot of belongings, and basically try to sell some of that, salvage it. And it's a frustrating situation to be in. Nobody likes to be in this type of situation financially. It's definitely one of those things that it doesn't make any sense. It just came out of nowhere. But if you don't take the time to prepare yourself financially, number one, and number two, being able to understand the next moves that you have to make. Do you have it planned out? Ask yourself that question. What's the next few moves you're going to make? A lot of people are jobless right now. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs after this whole thing is over, because these business owners have to catch up financially. They have to catch up to bills. They have to catch up to payroll. They have to catch up to taxes. They have to catch up to utilities. They have to run their business, and that's their bread and butter. So they're going to prioritize on making sure that it's still functional, and then worrying about employees and all these type of things later. And sometimes what happens is, employees are a key component of making sure it works, but financially, the business still has to go on, and human factors allows us to kind of delay the payments, and that means that you might get paid later than a utility company is going to shut off the business's electricity for not being able to respect it after the pandemic is done. So those are some of the things you have to think about, right? What are some of the plans that you have set up for moving forward or going forward, right? What are you going to do about it? How are you prepared? How are you going to tackle that going forward? So I hope you start thinking about that. I hope you start thinking about, okay, well, who am I going to listen to now? What am I supposed to do in these times? What are some of the things I need to focus on? And then from all that, what's the plans that I'm setting up for myself to be able to move forward? Because if you don't have that, then basically all this is for nothing. And even though you're staying at home and you're thinking the government's going to supplement your income and all these type of things you can have access to, and some people are ridiculous out there. Let me tell you this. And there's one of those things that really frustrate me, And I got a snapshot that's shared with me. I'm not going to put the person's name here and share that information, but this one person, right? And they teach credit too. I'm not going to say who it is. And they're basically saying just max out your cards or go get these type of things and invest in all these other things with the debt that you take, and don't worry about paying them. And if they ever come back on your credit report, I'll clean it up. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's theft. If you build a habit mentally, forget about the system of credit and this whole loophole and the Section 609 and all this crap. Forget all that. Think for a moment what you're emphasizing and teaching your kids and yourself. It's okay to steal and not pay it back. Just because you have access to credit, then you can just simply clean it and go back and burn those bridges. We talked about a lot of stuff. The one thing I'm going to tell you is there is internal fraud databases that's going to damage not only yourself but your kids to come. Because of the actions you take today, your kids are going to suffer tomorrow. So don't endorse any stupidity like that. You want to invest in wealth, do credit leveraging, do arbitrage, do things that are right. And then from that perspective, try to go and build more and build more and build more. If you do it based on the teachings of, you don't have to worry about, paying those debt back and max out your credit cards and do all these type of things, the mentality you're embedding in yourself and hopefully not going into your kids, but if they do learn about it and they do hear about it and they pick up on those things, is basically it's okay to do theft with credit card companies because you can fix your credit reports. And then what's going to happen is that mentality is going to be embedded into real life. And it's not going to translate into credit, but it's going to go into real life. And then you're going to have criminal actions against you. And I'm not saying this is something that's happening regularly, but that mindset and the mentality is not a good mindset to have. You should be thinking about, how do I maintain and leverage this credit while still respecting my bankable relationship so I can scale it and not burn a single bridge. That's the mentality you should have. Doesn't matter how much you invest from a credit card. No matter what you do from that perspective, the actions you took to initiate it were wrong, and it's not going to be healthy for you. So if you're going to do things the proper way, do them the proper way. Don't do it half-assed, and it's not going to get you anything if you think for a moment that you can evade those responsibilities. And a lot of people will disagree with me, and I can care less about those people. What I care about is making a difference in your life if you're serious. And if you want to change it for the better, do the right things and do it well. Okay? Those people who want to cry about shortcuts and legal loopholes and all these type of things can cry all they want. Right? But they're going to be at the bare bottom when you're trying to rise to the top, and you will continue rising to the top if you follow the advice I gave you and if you take your credit seriously and the relationships you're building seriously. So with that said, this is your guide and mentor, Ali Tarafter. Hope you guys are staying safe and sound and hopefully taking care of yourselves. Leave a comment below on what you think about what we're discussing today. Also, if you haven't had the chance, subscribe to this channel and turn the bell icon on so every time there's a video like this, you'll be first to be notified. Also, I got a masterclass coming up on April 13th of 2020. If you're listening to this video now, go on the community post of my YouTube channel. If you're subscribed, there's a registration link, and I look forward to seeing you there. Bye for now.